good, like an example for me is like my dog passed away 2 years ago. About 2 years ago. And, I can be upset about that and like mourn the loss and be attached to that. What I choose is to celebrate the life that he did have and all the times that we did have and the good memories. And, my favorite thing was like, I used to be able to walk him without a leash. We had a good relationship where I could communicate with him and he would listen. So it was always enjoyable for me to remember those times where, I felt like he lived a life of a king. Because when we got him, we rescued him, so to speak. He was malnourished, had fleas and all these things. And then here he is, like on his last days, like living his best life, and he looks so majestic. He's just sitting outside, looking into the wind and stuff. And so, around loss, for example, with like losing him, I have a story about the good times that I had and why that was so enjoyable as a celebration rather than an attachment to losing him. So, yeah.
So I was listening to you tell the story about your dog, and I was watching your body language while you're talking about your dog, right? So obviously, your dog has been long gone.
Yep.
But I could see the joy in your face just telling the story.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that proves one of my points, and this is in my upcoming book. So what I described was, we always feel like we lost something, right? Like you lost your dog. But if you think about it, you actually never lost your dog. Let me explain. I know it's a complex idea, okay? The way I describe it in this upcoming book, I said, if you have a teaspoon of salt, right? It looks like salt. It's white grains in a spoon, on a spoon. And so you're cooking a pot of stew, and you put that teaspoon of salt into that pot of stew. Do you still see the white granules? You don't.
Yeah.
So did you lose the salt?
Mm-mm.
You think you lost the salt. If you want to be attached to the worldly sense of loss, meaning something I can see, something I can touch.
Yeah.
Yes, you lost the salt in its original form. But the salt now is in that pot of stew. And so when you eat that stew, you will realize this stew tastes really good. And the stew tastes good because there was salt in the stew.
Yeah.
So the salt is in the stew. It just changed its form, but it's still in the stew. You really never lost the salt, right? Okay. You lost your dog. You cannot pet your dog anymore.
Right.
You cannot see your dog. But you see, when you were talking about your dog, you obviously was that stew with the salt in it.
Absolutely. Because like I have